Hello, I'm Blaine Nelson, and this is my COVID-19 cooking show. Everybody's got to have something to do during COVID-19, and here's what I'm doing. I'm going to start at the beginning with some very simple things that you don't see on TV, like knives and cutting boards, and we'll start with some simple stuff. Then we'll work into doing recipes, and there'll be some cocktails along the way and some wine as well. So let's start with knives. This is a paring knife. Costs about $5. You sort of have to have it. I use this thing for everything, all kinds of stuff. These are the lesser expensive knives here. These are the more expensive knives over here. So we'll get to these in a minute. This is what's called a boning knife. I prefer it stiff. This is meant to help get meat off of primal parts, like if you have a whole cow or a whole pig or something like that. Most people really not going to use a boning knife. You can use this for fish, by the way, as well. This is the typical, what we used to call a French knife or a chef's knife. It's an 8-inch knife that probably costs about $30, $40. Has a plastic handle, and most cooks use these because if they bang them up or something happens to it or some other cook steals it, you can get another one. It's not the end of the world. This is a carving knife. It's kind of different than most. I inherited this from someone who will remain nameless. I really like it. Thin blade, real thin. It keeps a real good edge to it. This is for like slicing steaks off of a primal part, something like that. Now, these knives, I stopped using a whetstone to sharpen knives a long time ago because, to be honest with you, I'm just too lazy. So instead, I use this. It's FM Franklin Machine Parts. Now, I only use this on my cheap knives because it takes off a lot of steel. And there's two ways to do this. I do it this way. You pull it like this, pull it towards you, okay? And you can't see this, but there's a lot of steel right in here, okay? So you don't need to do it a whole bunch of times, but it puts the edge back on the blade. It also takes a lot of steel off the blade, so I only use this on knives that aren't expensive. Now, these are Globals. I'm missing one here. Tony Bourdain once said, if you can only have one knife in the world, this is it. Global 6-inch French knife. Universal, you can do anything with this knife. You can cut meat, you can cut vegetables and fish and chicken. You don't really want to get after bones with it, but I've had this knife 8 or 9 years. I think I've sharpened it once. This is currently my absolute favorite knife. Once again, Global. They call this a vegetable knife. I don't care what they call it. This, to me, I use this thing all day, every day. I've had this knife 2 years, never sharpened it. This, they also call a vegetable knife. I also call this one a vegetable knife, by the way. It's sort of a long paring knife. It's a universal use. So with these knives, like I say, I have not sharpened these. All I do is I put them on a steel. This is a steel. You may have seen people doing this with, you never ever go towards yourself with a blade for obvious reasons. The steel has a magnetized tip that is made to pick up shards that come off the end of the blade. So like this with the steel, what a steel is meant to do is put the sharp edge back on the knife. It's not a sharpening tool. If it doesn't already have pretty much a good edge on it, then steel's not going to help you. So that's that. One quick thing about using a knife. Hold it like here, fingertips, and then wrap your hand around it, and that's it. Protect your hands. We'll get into chopping and stuff like that later on. So now cutting boards. This is very popular, very inexpensive. You can get it in different colors if you want to have one color for vegetables and one color for chicken and one color for fish, whatever. That's what they do in hotels and restaurants, is they have different colors. Because this is a plastic board, you can bleach it every time you use it. It also has a little ridge around here to collect juices that stray from wherever you cut. I grew up cutting on wood. I always liked cutting on wood. So this board here is bamboo. The bamboo runs this way, which makes it tougher, harder, I should say, than it would be if it was like this. Now this is a teak board, but the grain on the wood runs this way. So teak is a very hard wood, but the fact that the grain runs this way makes it a little bit softer. Now these boards here, this is my board. This is the board I use all day, every day. So when I clean them every day, at least twice a day. Put them in the sink, soap and water, scrub them down, let them dry, that's it. Maybe once a month, I'll put a little chlorine solution, some diluted chlorine, diluted heavily. Like Clorox cleanup works pretty well. Spray it on there, let it sit for a minute or two, and then clean it off. At that point, I'll oil this, because if you use too much chlorine on a wood board, it'll dry it out. So that's that. Very simple. That's it for today. We'll see you next time. Thanks.